We're in the kitchen today and we are making gnocchi. And if you've never heard of gnocchi, it is basically potato and flour, and it is a dough dumpling. It's absolutely delicious. It's fluffy and it takes on whatever flavoring you put. It's traditionally served with a sauce of some sort. So we are going to be making some today and taking you guys along with us. Again, it's really simple as far as the ingredients: egg, flour, potatoes, and salt. We are going to do a little spin up today and make one version beet and potato and one version more of the classic potato and flour gnocchi. Some of the other things you'll need are a few mixing bowls. I have a potato masher here and a wooden spoon. And then we're also going to need a pot for cooking the potatoes and beets. This is one of our favorite foods to make because you can make it now with little effort and store it away for later, if you just don't have time and you want to pull something quick out of the freezer. Let's start with the classic gnocchi. That is going to be 3 potatoes, and you can tell they're varying sizes. So I have a medium and 2 much larger potatoes that we're going to be using. I did measure it and it's about 2 pounds of golden or yellow potatoes. We're going to get them peeled and get them into a pot. I'm going to go ahead and get these sliced up just a little bit for the pot. They cook a little faster that way. We're going to get that up to a boil and let those simmer until they're cooked. Our potatoes are now done. They took about 20 minutes to cook, and I'm going to get the water out and put them over here in a mixing bowl. I'm going to get started and mash the potatoes. Another thing you can use is what's called a ricer, which we don't have. That would also, make the potatoes into tiny little pieces. We just want to get it really mashed up there, just until it's in little chunks. Our next step is going to be putting this out on the table for it to cool. We want it to be colder before we continue on with this process. So I'm just going to kind of push it out so it's a little bit thinner. We're going to let that cool for probably at least 10 minutes or so. Our mashed potatoes have cooled, so we are ready to keep going on with this recipe. I'm going to get an egg cracked, and I'm just going to bunch all this together and crack the egg right in the middle. And I'm just going to lightly break the yolk and just kind of mix it in there. And we're going to be mixing this by hand. You can use a spoon if you want to. We want that to be pretty well incorporated, so I'm going to keep mixing. Now that we've got that worked in, I am going to be adding 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to grab the rest. We're going to add another 1/2 cup of flour along with 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And then we're going to give everything a good mix again, just by hand. You're going to feel it start to come together or make a dough. So this is still a little sticky, which is okay. And we basically want to keep kneading this. So not too much, but for probably a minute or so to get it to be the texture we want, which is more like an elastic dough, and it's just not there yet. I think I need a little more flour. The water content of different varieties of potatoes obviously varies a little bit, so you may need more flour too, or less. I ended up adding about 1/2 more cup of flour. You may not need to do that, but that's what I needed for this dough to start to come together. And we're just going to keep kneading it until it looks smoother. Right now it's still kind of breaking apart. So this has come together the way we want it now, and it's a hair chunky, and what I mean by that is because I don't have the ricer, there's still little clumps of potatoes. So it does work better if you have one of those little gadgets, but we're just gonna make do with this. And you can tell it will get softer, fluffier, more elastic, more smooth is a better way to describe it, the more you keep kneading it, and that's all we're looking for. So now that it's one big lump, we're going to cut off some chunks and go ahead and roll out some logs. So we're going to go ahead and roll this out. And we're looking for a little under an inch diameter. This does not have to be perfect at all. It's just gonna look the way it does. And then you go along and you chop up your gnocchi pieces. And we go for a little bit smaller than an inch. There we go. This is what gnocchi looks like uncooked. It's a beautiful little pillow of dough and delicious, nice and fluffy. And I'm going to line a cookie sheet with some parchment paper. We're gonna get these outside to freeze before we put them away for storage. Don't worry, we're definitely gonna cook some so you can see how to cook them. And I have to get the rest of these rolled out and cut up. So I am rolling the last one, and it is helpful to add a little flour if you find things are getting sticky at all. Again, they don't have to be perfect. Most of the time they won't turn out perfect, but they do always taste perfect. We're gonna go ahead and move these outside. It is, I think, in the negatives out today, so we're just gonna put these outside for maybe 10-15 minutes. We want them to be ready to put into smaller bags and not all clump together or stick to each other. And you can also put them in a freezer if it's not cold enough outside where you live. While those are outside freezing, we're gonna get started on making our beet and potato gnocchi. I have 2 red potatoes, and I believe they have red insides too. We chose them for this. And I have a larger one and a medium one and 3 smaller beets. All together, we're looking at about 2 pounds total. And again, before we cut them up, we're gonna get our water boiling. And you can use any varieties for this. We just thought it'd be fun to use a red beet and a pink potato. Those potatoes are really hard down the root cellar, and that's what this red one looks like, or pink one. It's beautiful on the inside. We're gonna do the same thing for the beets, just half them. And we will be boiling everything. We are pulling out the potatoes now. They are already soft, but the beets we're gonna let go a little bit longer. We pulled our beets out, and we're gonna go ahead and get this all mashed up. We ended up getting out our immersion blender and using that just a little bit to get this a better consistency. I'm gonna get some flour down and put this on our table. We're gonna do the same thing and let this cool for a little before we add our egg. Now that this is cool, we're going to crack our egg right in the middle. Just gonna give it a little stir in there. And then do the same thing where I mash it up. It's gonna have a little bit of a different consistency since we're using beets. We're gonna add 1.5 cups of flour and a teaspoon of kosher salt. And we're gonna do the same thing where we just mix that in. Added in a little bit more flour. We want this to form a dough again. And I'll warn you, the beets are a little bit stickier, so they're harder to work with. Our dough's starting to look a lot better. I'm just gonna keep kneading it until it gets a little bit smoother. go ahead and start rolling these. I'm gonna put a little flour on them. We're going for about the same size as our other gnocchi. I'm gonna get these outside so they can freeze, and then we are going to cook some of the gnocchi when we get back. We set aside 6 gnocchi earlier, and I have 3 beets and 3 of the potatoes. And what I'm going to do is just plop them in some boiling water, and they take just a moment to cook. I'm gonna flip on a light so you guys can see a little better. And these are going to float up to the top. And then once they're up to the top, we're gonna allow them to cook for another 2 minutes or so before we take them out. These have been in here for under a minute and they've already floated to the top. So I'm just kind of stirring them. And you don't want to cook way too many at one time. This way they cook a little bit more thoroughly. And this is just a super simple, easy meal. And it's pretty filling. And it cooks extremely fast. So unfortunately, Eric and I will not be eating these today because we are on our food challenge and flour doesn't qualify for the food challenge and salt. But we'll probably end up giving them to the dogs. I'm just going to show you guys what they look like when we cut them open. That's the finished product, and they are a little lumpy, but they taste amazing. So at this point you could add a sauce or top them with whatever you want. Butter, sage, nuts, anything like that would turn out really nice. Go ahead and cut one up. So that's what they look like on the inside. Very similar to a dumpling. We decided to wait to vacuum seal our gnocchi until tomorrow. It is taking a little bit longer to freeze outside since it's warmed up, so we are going to pick back up then. It's the next day and our gnocchi are now frozen hard enough to go ahead and package them. We're going to be vacuum sealing them in small amounts for just one meal at a time. And you can tell they're ready when they're not sticky anymore. So these are now hard and ready to be packaged. Make this one a little bit bigger, and that looks good to me. Okay, so we have to get lots more done, and we hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you want to try it, it's something, again, that's really simple, easy to make. The ingredients is something you may already have, and it's just a fast, quick meal for those nights that you don't feel like cooking. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next time.